Hello and welcome to the next video in the series where I'm going to show you basically setting up of this newly purchased Epiphone SG Special. So we're going to make some adjustments. Here we're just going to adjust the height of the strings and also the neck relief in an attempt to basically obviously lower the action and make the guitar a bit more playable. So I've got a number of tools that I'm going to need to do this, and this is all stuff I basically already had lying around or got with the guitar. So to do this, I suppose the bare minimum you can get away with is you need a screwdriver, something like a small watchmaker's one, to undo the cover of the truss rod, which I've already done. That's just held on by 3 screws. You also need an Allen key, which should have come with the guitar when you bought it. A steel ruler like this one, which is this one's marked off in 32/32 of an inch. By sight I can do it by 64ths, or I could cut notches in it, or you know, if you're lucky enough you might be able to find a ruler marked up with 64ths in that sort of first inch area. And then a slightly larger screwdriver which fits pretty good, which will fit into here, into the bridge, so I can make the adjustments. Now you want one that fits well, you don't want one that's too loose, because if you slip with it you could end up, you know, obviously messing up down here and then making it harder to adjust later on if you sort of damage this area where the screwdriver goes in. Now one added bonus you could have is a feeler gauge like this, which I got from just like a local local hardware store, like Canadian Tire in Canada. You don't necessarily need this. In the instructions that I pulled down from the web, they recommend using a sheet of paper. On a Gibson, the relief, according to the factory specs, is fairly small. So what I've done here is, just for convenience, I've worked out the correct feeler gauge for the width of a piece of paper, which is 0.1 millimeters. And I've also got a 0.3 here, just to show you what the current relief is on this guitar. So the first question is, how do you measure the relief? Well, to do this as well, if you want to measure the relief and you don't want to run out of hands, or you don't want to, you've got no one that can hold the strings down on the first fret like I've got a capo here on the first fret to help me. Because what I'm going to be doing is basically fretting on the 15th fret, there's a 12, 13, 14, 15 there. The first thing I'm just going to do is just check if this guitar has any relief at all. And you can do that by tapping the string, and just around about, this is the 7th fret you need to do this, so halfway between the two, and just check to see if there's any movement there. You can even try plucking it and see if the note rings, and it does. So that means there's a bit of a gap between the bottom of the string and the fret. Now on this guitar I happen to know that that actual amount is 0.3 of a millimeter. My feeler gauge goes underneath there easily, doesn't really move the string. If I do a 0.35 or obviously up as far as a 4, then you can see the string moving. But if I manage to actually do that in flat, it's still moving, but it's very small. So that's roughly what it is now. That's the only reason I need to know that. I was just curious as to what the current measurement is. Now on a lot of guitars that would actually be fine. So depending on your make of guitar, you might find that, say on a Fender, 0.3 millimeter relief is fine. And also don't forget it's different on acoustics as well. So just make sure you've got the right settings from a sort of reliable source before you start messing about too much with particularly the truss rod. What you don't want to end up is with it bowing the other way where you've got no relief at all. That's not a good thing. So what I'm going to do in a moment is start adjusting the truss rod and get it down so I can get this 0.1mm underneath there. I do that by using my Allen key, and I insert it into the head of the truss rod, which it's gone into there. And if you want to put less relief on a neck, you turn it clockwise, but you always do it as though you're looking down the neck from above. So clockwise is going to be this way. If I wanted more relief, say this neck didn't have any relief in it and was bowed in the wrong direction, then I would turn it that way, counterclockwise. So firstly, when you first try and do this, you'll probably find there's a little bit of resistance. So I'm just going to get it to move a little bit. There it is. Now sometimes it's quite tricky as well when you've got the strings on the guitar, and that's quite difficult if you're making measurements and also you know, trying to use this as a way of measuring it. I've seen some people like take all the strings off bar one. So now we've got to try and get this in. That's about as far as it's going to go that way. So now I've got a bit more, yeah, so I can get that in and get a good turn on it. So I'm just going to give it a little bit of a turn here. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is just again fret it up here. 13, 14, 15. Again, it's pace to take your time with this. There's no rush. I can really feel the resistance there now, so it's definitely going in the right direction. Now there is a general rule with this, is they do say never do more than a whole turn on a guitar. If you're having to start putting a lot of tension on the neck, then it's a good idea to take it into a shop and get them to have a look at it in case there's a problem. I should have taken the strings off of this actually, but never mind. There we go. Check again, and just take your time. Good. A little bit of a I think that's not far off. I'm just going to do one more little turn. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. I think that's good. Still ringing. I still can get my feeler gauge underneath there. I'll try a piece of paper, which is the other way to do it. I need to get underneath there. So now what we do is we also check on the other side to make sure that this is fine. Yeah, get it underneath there. See, my original one's catching, and I did measure this on both sides originally. Actually, it was 0.3 at the start. So again, I'm just going to, yeah, so what I'm going to do now is measure the action on this and make some adjustments. Normally I'd use this ruler, but the trouble is the tripod's in the way, so I can't get really close enough to use this. So all I've done is I've just got my feeler gauges set up so that I can measure the distances appropriately. Now for this measurement, this side, which is the low E, should be 5/64, and the high E should be 3/64, and this is at the 15th fret. And again, we've got it the capo on at the 1st fret. So I'm going to make a measurement here. It's going to be a bit high, not too high though. and I can see I've got a bit of clearance there. So I'm now going to make an adjustment here, and I'm turning this that way to make the bridge go down, and I'm just keeping my, see whether that, I think I'm nearly there. That's probably about right on there. And then the other side just doesn't need to be adjusted that much. Let's take it down a little bit. A little bit more. It's quite difficult to see, that's why it's always, I find it easier actually with the rule, and what I'll do is once I finish this I'm going to double check these, but as long as you get the gist of it, is that basically obviously you're adjusting your height here, and it's going to have an effect on the height between the strings here and the fret there, and you just need to have these values. So like I said, it's 5/64 on the 15th fret on the low E, and 3/64 on the 15th fret on the high E. Now the other thing that they recommend you do is take the capo off and then check the string heights down here at the first fret. So down here what you're looking for is the E and the A should be 2/64, the G should be 1.5/64, and then the B and the E here should be 1/64 on there. And again, I could use my ruler to do this, but as I said, with the camera being in the way, the tripod, it's going to be rather tricky to do. That actually looks... I just can't get close enough, but from here, yeah, that looks about right actually. So we're looking good, which is good. Okay, so that's our action done. And then the next thing we might want to adjust on this is the pickup height. So what we're going to do on here is have a look at the pickup. Oh, and one more thing actually I forgot to say is after you've done the check up here, it's a good idea to recheck on the 12th fret and just see what the height is on the 12th fret. And see whether it matches the 15th fret heights that you did. And I can see here, yeah, my feeler gauge is just moving a bit there, and then same there. So that's good. So that's nice. So okay, so another measurement I want to take is the pickup height. Because I've sort of lowered the action, I need to check this. Now the settings are going to be, for the low E, the bridge pickup, the height from the bottom of the string to the top of the pickup, the pole piece here, is going to be 3/64 of an inch, and in the neck it's 4/64, and then on the high E it's 3/64 on both. And again, I'd use my steel ruler to measure that by doing that. There, and there, and there. And then once I check that height, I then use my screwdriver, which again I just make sure fits well, because I don't want to thread these. and if I screw clockwise looking down, pickup goes up, counterclockwise, pickup will move down. So based on my measurements, and this is something I need to double check later because again I've got problems getting in close to look at what these are with the camera in the way, but that's basically where you make those measurements on there. So once you've done that and everything's fine, then what you would do is obviously check the neck and make sure there's not, depending on how you like to play, if it's a particularly low action, you may find you have a bit of buzzing, but only maybe when you initially play the note. And you just check all over the neck to just see where there's any buzzing, and if the buzzing is an unacceptable level, and it's good to check this when it's amplified as well, then you will either need to just double check and make sure you didn't do something wrong when you were doing the relief and maybe you've now got a back bow, or that you've lowered the action a bit too far. So you basically just recheck all your measurements and just check all over the neck to see if there's any unacceptable buzzes. We've got a bit of a buzz here. So I'm going to just need to check that and find out what it's going to sound like when it's amplified. I'm just going to check on here the intonation. What will happen is I compare the open note against the harmonic, and they should be the same. They're not the same, and what I need to do, if the pitch of the fretting note is lower than that of the harmonic, the scale length is too long and the saddle must be moved towards the nut so that the pitch of the fretting note is raised. If the pitch of the fretting note is higher than that of the harmonic, the scale length of the string is too short and the saddle should be moved away from the nut. And I adjust these to do that. So let's see what's happening here. So my A may need adjustment. B's okay. He's okay. So let's check this A again. No, that's fine. Oh, it's right on the limit basically. It's so minuscule. Okay, so if I did need to adjust this, what I do is, using a screwdriver that fits, I adjust this here. Now, what I want to do is, again, I want to make sure that this does fit perfectly here, because I don't want to shred these. And it's quite difficult. The annoying thing with this is actually quite difficult with the strings on. Now, this looks like this doesn't fit, so I just need to find a better one to do this. Let's try one of these. So this just allows me to adjust this. So if I move the saddle this way, see what happens. So first I'm going to have to retune the string. And then I'm going to refret it. And there we go. So basically by moving the saddle that way, I'm reducing effectively the string length. And that raised the note. So that's the only adjustment I had to do on that, was just that A string. Okay, thanks for watching.